Welcome back to another episode of the Angel Moms podcast. I'm Lisa Boehm, Angel Mom, author, speaker, and podcaster. Today, I want to dive into something that I think is super common for all grieving parents. Actually, probably most people who are grieving, period. And that's this spiral that we all do, this loop of the question, what if? What if I had taken him to the doctor sooner? What if she hadn't taken the car out that night? What if he wasn't hanging around with that friend that night? What if, right? After someone dies, we're talking about our children here. When we look back in the past to events that have happened, everything seems crystal clear. This event led to that, led to that, led to that, and the outcome was that our child died, right? It seems so clear. And as human beings, we are wired to want things to be logical. We want things to make sense. So our brain goes down this twisted path of trying to connect the dots. And it does. Doesn't mean that it's right, but it wants to come to this realization. Our brain loves things like this in its simplest form. If this, then that, right? If I go outside and it's raining, I will get wet, right? Like basic. So our brain is putting this all together. Our brain wants this awful situation to have some logic, some meaning. We want to understand it. What happened? What caused this? So this is what our brain starts to do. Well, in my situation, my daughter went out on a regular Tuesday night to run a few errands and never came home again. She was involved in a fatal car accident. So my what if questions were like this. What if I hadn't let her go out that night? What if I said, it's a Tuesday night, kid? You don't, what do you possibly have to do on a Tuesday night? I didn't. Her dad, my husband, had been talking about taking her car, fueling it up, washing it for her. And he never did. He got tied up in work and she decided she had to run an errand and away she went. But so many of these questions were going through our heads. What if we hadn't let her go out? What if we would have made her go with a friend? What if? And our brain is struggling to tie all this together, but it doesn't mean that our brain is right. Because what ends up happening when we are asking these what if questions is that we end up putting blame on ourselves. Now, I know for a fact, whether I've met you or not, that you never would have let anything happen to your child. If you did have any control of the situation, if you could have taken them to the doctor sooner, if you could have prevented their suicide, their drug overdose, whatever it was, would you have done it? Of course. That's a silly question because I know what the answer is. You know what the answer is. And yet in our brains, we think that we had more control over the situation than we actually did. Now, I ask this question to you not to be glib, but to really prove a point. Actually, I have a couple of questions for you. Number one, do you know the winning lottery tickets for this Saturday? Number two, do you know what your spouse or your best friend or your partner, your child, your neighbor is thinking at any given time? My guess is that you don't, because you're not psychic, because you can't see into the future. If we could see into the future, first of all, we'd all be millionaires, but we would have prevented our children from dying. I would have prevented Katie from going out that night. You might have prevented your child from doing something or from, whatever the situation was. But we're not all-knowing gods. We're human beings. And here's my big message for you today. You did the best you could at the time with the information you had. No matter what your situation, no matter what your child's situation, you did the very best you could at the time with the information you had. We need to stop putting that guilt on our shoulders, or we need to stop blaming other people who just aren't at fault. I know it's easy to do, but I want to just put that idea over to the side for a minute. And I want to also apply this theory to what other people are thinking about our situation. Now, at first, this made me absolutely insane, like crazy mad, because almost everyone, whether it was on social media or people I met face to face, they said, oh, well, Katie must have been drinking, or she must have been high, or she must have been texting. Yeah, people said that to my face, right? And at first, I just wanted to strangle people. It still makes me rip-roaring mad. But now, I guess, after time and having dived into the psychology of the human brain, I have a little bit more understanding and can give those people grace because they too are trying to connect the dots, right? The other thing that is going through their minds is they don't want to realize that these awful things can happen to any family, any child, right? Like there's nothing, our children were not bad. There was nothing really wrong. Like bad things happen all the time. And people don't want that reality to be the reason that our children died, was that it was awful bad luck. So they want some big reason that will eliminate their child as a possibility to pass away in the future. So for example, when people ask me, oh, well, Katie, what must have been drinking or high or texting, right? Because in their brain, they had that if then, or if this, then that scenario, right? Because if they could say, oh, well, Katie was drinking, so, my kid would never, ever, ever do that. So my kid won't die in a car accident because they don't do those things, right? Because they don't want to recognize the fact that these awful things can and do happen all the time. So anyway, that is my spiel on what if. It gets us nowhere. Because when we ask the question, what if, we look into the past, right? What power do we have when we look in the past? Zero, like none. I can't change what I said 5 seconds ago. I can't undo Katie's accident, just like you can't undo your child's passing. Okay. So for me, I felt like I had some more power, if you want to call it that, when I changed the question from what if to what now. Because when I ask the question, what now? Well, that question looks to the present or to the future. What do I do with the situation now? And nothing's going to change it, right? Because we can't undo the past. But what it made me start thinking is, okay, well, what do I do with this? How can I use this to honor Katie? How can I use this to create a legacy for her? And how do I help myself, right? Because you know what this feels like. Child loss, grieving, loss. It hurts. It sucks. It's awful. So how can I help myself? How can I get stronger? How can I work on my grief? How can I learn to carry it? Because it's not going anywhere. But also, what can I do to prevent other people from dying this way? Katie died on a dark stretch of road. So I poured myself into increasing or improving the lighting on that stretch of road. So you can take your child's situation, if that's something that you're really passionate about. Maybe you want to be a patient advocate in the hospital for a situation that you want to make sure never happens to another human. Perhaps you want to learn more about drugs, speak about drugs, get into the schools talking about that. Suicide prevention, mental health. There's a gajillion ways that you can change the way things are in this world. Getting involved with different things, creating a nonprofit. So think about that. You don't have to have any answers today. I don't expect you to have any answers today. Even my decision of working with the city to change lighting, that took years and years. And of course, I had to do research and all that. So just let that seed germinate. Think about it. Just think how you would like to see change. And then I want to just talk just for a minute about how you can take better care of yourself, because it is a choice. And that is part of the what now, right? What do I do with this thing? What do I do with my grief? What do I do with my child loss? And while I do believe that feeling is healing and it's important to feel those feelings, I also know that it's a choice to stay there. Like it or not, I got to say that it's a choice to stay there. Stay there as long as you need, but don't stay there forever. And the things that I think really do move the needle in grief is starting with the simple stuff. Self-care. I'm not talking about bubble baths. I'm not talking about manicures and pedicures, although those are fine. I am talking about moving your body. I'm talking about replacing those tears and all that snot, because we cry a lot, right? We cry liters and liters of water, and we need to replace that. Okay. Like physiologically, we require that fluid in order for our body to function and in order for our brain and our mental health to be at least as best as it can be. Okay. I want you to get outside every day. I want you to plant your feet outside. If it's freezing cold, you can still walk, a few houses that way and a few houses back. Just that alone is going to make you feel better. I want you to do some stretching. I want you to let that grief move around your body. Search out Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube. It's free. She has like a million different videos. Type in yoga for grief under Yoga with Adrienne. And yeah, she's got a yoga. I think it's 20 some minutes long. It's not long at all. It's mostly laying on the mat. Doing that a couple times a week will change things for you. So there you go. There you have it. I will have an upcoming challenge later this month, and it's all about combining wellness and grief. And it's simple, simple, simple stuff. If you would like to be a part of that free challenge, and I'm calling it Restore Me, because that's what we got to do. We really got to get back to ourselves and restoring our health. Then check out the show notes below. There is a link so that you can get signed up and be a part of that. It's running January 20th to 23rd. It's free of charge. You'll get to meet other grieving moms. I will be doing a Facebook Live with you every single day in a private Facebook group, so you can say whatever's on your mind without worrying about who's going to see it. And I will be challenging you to make some small movements in your physical health, because it does affect your mental health. That's all I've got today. Let me know what you think of this topic, this episode, and if what ifs have been bothering you. And I hope you can change your thinking to what. All right. Take care. We'll see you next week.